Hello students, we are here today with Miss Steffke. I'm here with her because she is also a scientist. What do you teach, Miss Steffke?
I teach 5th, 6th, and 7th grade history, as well as 6th grade literature and grammar.
Wow.
So you all have me.
Yes, I guess, yes, you all have Miss Steffke. So she's more than just a history teacher. Her interests lie much farther than that. And we are all geared up today. Do you mind telling us about PPEs, why we're wearing all of this?
Yes, PPE stands for personal protection equipment. Doctors, nurses, people that are dealing with, especially with COVID right now, have to wear these things to protect them from getting the virus. When you make soap, which is what we're going to do today, you also have to wear PPE. I have an apron on to protect my clothing from raw soap batter. So one, it doesn't get dirty, but two, so I also don't get hurt. I have to wear gloves and long sleeves so no bare skin is exposed, as well as a hairnet to make sure no hair falls into soap. That would be gross. And a face shield so I can see things and cover my face completely, so no raw soap batter will splatter my skin.
Okay, so today she's going to show us a little bit of the process of how she makes soap and why chemistry is involved in that. So let's get started. Action.
Hey kids, so a couple things we need to know. When you make soap, you use raw fats, oils, and butters, which may sound gross, but things like cocoa butter, shea butter, that kind of stuff, as well as olive oil, is what's used to react with our other main ingredient, which is called sodium hydroxide. And we mix that with water to create a sodium hydroxide solution. You might have heard of that before as lye or drain cleaner. Some drain cleaners are 100% lye. You have to use 100% lye. I don't recommend you doing this at home, especially without parental supervision, because lye will burn you. Lye is what we call very alkaline, which is at the far end of the pH scale, which may sound weird, but your skin is able to use that to help break down germs and things that are envelope viruses like COVID, which is why we say wash your hands often. So what I've done already is I've measured out all my ingredients. So I have all my oils, butters, and
They're
fats.
all in there?
All in here. They've been melted down because some of them are solid at room temperature or at lower temperatures, higher temperatures. We have lard, coconut oil, cocoa butter, shea butter, olive oil, sunflower oil, and castor oil. Each of these oils has a specific property that makes the soap good. Oil will create big fluffy bubbles, and olive oil is very conditioning and creamy, which is good for not drying out your hands. Most soaps, when you buy them at the grocery store, aren't actually soap. Did you know that?
No.
They're what we call a synthetic detergent. And the reason why they're sold at such low prices is because it's cheaper to make, and you don't actually have to go through the process of making soap. But that's a shame, because real soap is just really nice. And it's a fun process. I never liked chemistry in school, but now as a soap maker, and I make all sorts of other products too, I love chemistry, but it's the kind of chemistry that I like to do. And I'm going to use this called infrared thermometer. Now this, you might have seen these before. It's hard to tell. It has a little laser pointer. There's 2 dots. So I can get an accurate read of the temperature of my materials, which is important for putting together the lye solution and the fats and butters. When these are put together, they're going to react and create a salty version, if that makes sense, like a alkaline salt fat. And that's actually what cleans you.
Cool.
So, right here I'm measuring my oils, and it is at 106 degrees Fahrenheit.
Nice.
Now, this is a stick blender or an immersion blender. And it has a little blade down here that spins and spins, because otherwise I would be mixing my soap by hand forever. So this helps speeds up the process. So what I'm going to do here is give my oils. I don't know if you saw that, there are some bubbles that came up. This is called burping the blender. Because you don't want extra air pockets to get in there, because that would create air pockets in your soap. What I'm going to do real quick is make sure everything's mixed together and what we call emulsified. Just a couple little spurts. You don't have to do much. Then I'm going to take my lye solution, and I use a strainer on top because when I make my lye, I do it ahead of time. Because when water mixes with lye, it gets extremely hot, like over boiling. And when I do that, I also melt silk fibers in here. I'm also going to take some sodium lactate, which I just kind of eyeball. And this is a liquid version of salt. And you add this to your lye solution. And it helps to harden up your soap so it's not too soft when you're waiting for it to be cut. Now I'm going to take my spatula here. Just give it a good little mix. Now, the reason I'm being very careful with this is because even though it's only at 65 degrees Fahrenheit, it can still burn me. That's why it's used for drain cleaners, is because it dissolves all that gunk that's in your drain. Now what I do is I pour it down my stick blender because that will prevent lots of extra bubbles you can put in there. Now, you can see there's a little bit of white at the bottom, but the top is still kind of a clear color. Yeah. Now, watch this. This is my favorite part.
Wow.
This is soap batter now. You can see the chemical change that occurs.
The color change.
Exactly. And so what I've done here is I've stick blended it to emulsification. So it's all mixed together really well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this plugged in and keep it all set up. I'm just going to set it in here until I need that again. There's different forms of the soap batter solution, which will cause it to be thicker, almost like a pudding-like texture if it's a thick trace. And the way you can tell if something is trace is if it sits on the top or not. You can tell what kind of trace it is. See how that goes right back in? If it was a thick trace or a medium trace, it would sit on top. But those droplets go back in, and that's how I want it, because if I can have a thin trace or just emulsified soap batter, I can do lots of different colors and swirls. And if I'm going to make soap, usually I want it to look really cool and pretty. So what I have here is my fragrance oil. And in this fragrance oil, there's also something called white kaolin clay. I also have another batch of soap already ready to go. And this is the fragrance oil sitting on top of the clay. Even though I've already mixed it up, that clay is more dense, so it falls to the bottom.
Yeah, they know about that.
Yeah. So I mix it up ahead of time. And this scent is apple honey champagne. And it's really nice. I mix it up like this, though, and the reason I put that clay in there is it helps anchor the scent in the soap. So it continues to smell nice even after months and months, which I hope I sell it, though, before months and months go by.
Yeah.
Because this is my side business. Now, what I'm going to do is pour a little bit of this in here, about half of that. And I'm going to put all of my vanilla color stabilizer in here. And if you don't know this, vanilla, if you ever use vanilla extract in baking, it's kind of a dark color, isn't it? Well, vanillin discolors different products. And vanilla color stabilizer is used in soap and other bath and body products because it helps keep that original color and not have it darken. If you have a certain amount of vanilla, though, you're not going to be able to avoid it darkening. Just postpone it. Making sure it's all mixed up. Notice I'm not using the stick blender. I don't want it to reach a thicker trace, so that's why I'm just stirring it with my spatula. Scraping all that off. Let that sit for a second. And I'm going to grab what's called a mold. Now, this isn't the fuzzy stuff that grows on food when it goes bad. This is what we put the soap in to get its shape. Because it's a liquid, it'll expand to whatever container it's filled with. So, this is what I'll be pouring my stuff in. What I have here are several containers, and I have different colored micas. Micas are usually synthetic, man-made, because real mica can be mined, but unfortunately it's usually mined in third world countries, and they use children to do it, so there's lots of ethical issues, so they don't really sell that. What I'm going to do here, though, is I have what's called titanium dioxide, which whitens things up, which I'll be mixing in this main bit after I portion it out. So, I've already squirted some of my white titanium dioxide liquid solution in here, as well as some white sparkling micas. I have some silvery micas, gold, and a little bit of black. And this is going to be kind of like a New Year's themed soap. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my stick blender and I'm going to go from my lightest color to my darkest color. Because then I don't have to clean off the stick blender in between each. So what I do is I put this over that powder because otherwise that powder is going to go everywhere. So this puts it into the solution and I just pulse it a few times. You can see how it's mixing up the color there. I have all my white in here. And I'm going to do what we call a drop swirl. So I'm going to pour my stuff in from high up so it'll drop through and create a super cool swirl. I'm going to do something called burping the soap, just to get out any air bubbles that might be in there. So now I have a skewer, chopstick, whatever you want to call it. Basically, you just need something kind of pointed, or like a stick. You could use a popsicle stick. I'm just going to go through and kind of just swirl the top here. And I'm only going that far deep, not very far, because I don't want to disrupt the design underneath. And now it's ready to pop in the oven.
Woohoo!
We preheated it to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we're going to turn it down to warm. And we're going to check our temperature with our infrared gun. 221.4 degrees Fahrenheit. That heat will help it insulate and keep it warm as it's going through what we call saponification, which is the soap making process of all those fats turning into soap.
Cool.
So what I do is I bring it over here, and when I put it in the oven, that temperature is also going to help it go through something we call gel phase, which is when it becomes almost like a soft gel in a way, and it'll help make all the colors pop. And I just leave it in there for about 20 minutes, and then once it's done, after 20 minutes, I'll turn it to off. I'll leave it in there overnight and let it cool down, and it'll also prevent it from getting something called soda ash.
What's that?
Soda ash is when the air is reacting to the saponification process, and it creates a form of soda. Another word for sodium hydroxide, or lye, is soda ash. I'm going to show you guys an example of what soda ash looks like. Now, before I started using the oven, I used to use just the air. And on things like darker colors at certain temperatures, you'll get something called soda ash. And it's like a white kind of powdery substance on there. You can steam it off. You can wash it off. Sometimes I wash the tops of my soap to make it nice and shiny. But there's really nothing wrong with it. Sometimes it even looks cool, and I'll keep it in design.
Yeah, what other types of soap have you made? What smells?
So many. I made a 4th of July themed soap that's red, white, and blue and apple pie scented. Lavender is a big seller. I have loofah mint, lemongrass, which this one looks really cool because I tried to go for a peacock look.
Wow, I like it.
Thank you. And then I have unscented. I call it my bear bar. The name of my company is called Baby Bear Soapery. And so it's like bear skin, but it's unscented, it's uncolored, just good old plain soap. I also have sun-dried cotton, lots of stuff. Oh, right here. My bourbon tobacco has a little bit of soda ash on top, but I kept it because it looks kind of smoky, like I would imagine a bourbon tobacco kind of smell should look. That's one of my favorites. I've made sweetgrass, grapefruit, blood orange, lemon poppy seed, black raspberry lemonade, coffee cake, coffee, juicy peach, sunflower. This is lemongrass green tea. And this is my way of being artistic. Sometimes I pipe on the top this kind of frosting look with a cake froster, cake piper, and I sell these for a little bit more because it's more soap. Sometimes these can weigh up to half a pound of soap. I also make bath bombs and body butters, scrubs, all that fun stuff. This is one of my favorites. This is pumpkin spice latte.
Wow, I like the little pumpkin.
Thank you. Yeah, I made these out of what we call melt and pour soap, which isn't the kind of soap that we just made. It's like a pre-made soap that I can melt down and add colors. I do that for what we call the embeds because, well, I embed them and they look cute.
Yeah.
One that I used just recently was right here for something. I scented in what we call Harvest Moon. And this is how they look like when they're finished. I bevel them so they look nice and the hard edges aren't there. And this one has a melt and pour embed that's the shape of a maple leaf. And then I stamped them with the name of my company.
Beautiful. Do you think you'll be able to show us the final product of the soap we made today?
Absolutely.
All right, just send a video to us. That'd be great.
I totally will.
Yay! All right. Well, thank you, Miss Steffke, for showing us your lab. My goodness.
Maybe we can do another video where it's all finished and I have my whole studio built.
Yeah, to be continued.